Hi everyone, welcome to my review of Nicolas Refn's Pusher 3 in 2005, also known as I'm the Angel of Death, Pusher 3. And this is the final in the Pusher trilogy, directed by Refn. Of course, once again I say this, if you don't know Refn, he's directed Drive, Bronson, Neon Demon, Only God Forgives. They're probably the ones that most people know. But he's also done some amazing films that are not well known at all. Particularly Bleeder, that's a very under the radar film, which I think is not far off being a masterpiece. But this trilogy is pretty unknown as well, the Pusher trilogy, but it's kind of what made him famous, of course, in his own sort of country and stuff. Pusher 1 was his debut film. I thought it's a good film, a lot of flaws, and as I've said in my review, it did get let down in the second half of the film. Pusher 2, I thought, was a stunning film. And you know what I said in my last review of Pusher 2, this is, Pusher 2 is still the best. I don't think this is as good, Pusher 3, but we'll talk about what I think of the film. So basically, it follows Zlatko Buric's character, who's in the other Pusher films, of course. But this one he's basically the main protagonist, as Milo, and yeah, it's a very different one because in the past two films he was more of the comedy character, you could say. In this he's it's basically like the transformation. Mads Mikkelsen's character from Pusher 1 to Pusher 2. You could say that Milo's character of Milo is kind of it's the same sort of transition between Pusher 2 and Pusher 3, because he's much more of a maybe depressed character, you could say, and much more of a serious character than what he was in the past few films. But of course he's still very likable, very engaging. But yes, this film, it kind of what this film does is follow him. He's kind of trying to balance out his home life, looking after his daughter and stuff, tending to basically spending time with his daughter and stuff, and he helps out with preparing food for the party that she's having and stuff, and while also showing drug lifestyle once again, drug dealers and stuff, which is what this trilogy is really. It's kind of exploring the the underworld, criminal underworld, and it's the Pusher 1 was one of the first Danish crime films, gangster films, and this one, I definitely think is better than Pusher 1. Just don't think it's quite up there with Pusher 2. It had a long way to go for that. But yes, this is a return to form really, because I did review Fear X, and I didn't think that was good at all. But these two films, Pusher 2 and Pusher 3, definitely massive return to form for Refn. And yes, the characters in this film, it's a return of Radovan, played by Zlatko Labovic. He was in some of the other Pusher films. He returns, in the second half, who's also, of course, a great character. And it's got a couple of side characters throughout. I wasn't a massive fan of the daughter of Milo, Milo. She wasn't, the best. Melina, I think it was her name. She just wasn't that, compelling of a character, and she was a bit, it's just very unlikable, I feel. I know I was maybe trying to make a point of that, but yes, no, I didn't think she was a great character. But really, the rest of the cast and characters and stuff were really well written once again, and just very compelling. This one goes a lot darker than Pusher 1 as well. Like Pusher 2, it's a lot darker. Especially towards the end of the film. And the second half really, explores a lot of things like prostitution, trafficking and stuff, as well as drug trade and stuff, and it does it in such a way, really, really powerful stuff, and quite sincere as well. It's never heavy-handed, and stuff, and there's a couple of scenes in the second, half of the film that are really just so well built up in terms of tension and stuff as well, and very, very moving. I think that the second half is definitely better in this film than the first, because early on I was starting to notice a couple of things that were kind of a bit present in Pusher 1, but not quite as much so. But just some scenes were a bit flat. ever so slightly bland. You know, a lot of the time you see him kind of just cooking for these people, preparing food and stuff. And you know, a lot of stuff is great in there. You know, there's a lot of exposition and stuff while he's doing this stuff. While he's preparing the food. But really, it could have been better. It just seems ever so slightly flat. And although it did have some powerful stuff in there, it could have been better. It didn't set up things perfectly. But you know, once the second half comes around, it's absolutely stunning. Really, the rest of the film. And you know, I just really related to this character of Milo, and of course he's in the other films, so it's kind of easy in that sense that you kind of know him. But really, it's very different. You know, very different. He's struggling with you know, many things, and of course trying to, you know, get off the drugs and stuff. And it's just the way it's handled is very powerful, very meaningful, and as well, this film has a lot of heart. You know, definitely portrayed in these scenes of his, you know, him and his daughter, and just you know, as well, the bit in the second half of the film that I mentioned with the, you know, the prostitute and stuff. You know, Refn really does have a heart. You know, shows his heart in this film, and it's definitely a, you know, very human film. The directing style, you know, I did mention, of course, in Pusher One, I did find some flaws with the camera work. You know, as I say, I'm not a massive fan of when a film, you know, throughout the entire film is documentary style. You know, it can work, as I've said before. Rarely does it work, you know, at a level of mastery throughout the entire film. And I feel that it does kind of bring back that style from Pusher One in this film. Pusher Two, that was kind of gone completely. You know, that was definitely much more cinematic, you know, static shots and everything. Just much more sophisticated, graceful, and really just attuned to what was going on in the different scenes with the tone of the scenes. Once again, it does slightly return with a bit of the, you know, the camera shaky cams and stuff, which is fine, but you know, nowhere near as good as Pusher 2 directing and cinematography. The editing is still really good though, I feel. Just again, not as good as Pusher 2. It did sometimes take away, you know, a bit cutty, a bit jumpy cuts. You know, a bit choppy for my liking. But yes, no, really, he does bring the film full circle, really, in the final act in particular. And the second half of the film, it's just really stunning, you know. It's powerful, it's human, it's at times funny, you know, especially when Radovan's character, he comes back into it, you know. And there's a great, but you know, him and Milo together, really, the sense of charm, camaraderie, and just, it's just really good to see, you know, the friendship of them come back, you know, because he hadn't seen him for a few years in it. And he returns, of course, and it's just a really good sight to see. And you know, his role that he has in the final act is really, you know, this is a very graphic film. There's quite a prolonged kind of scene where they're cutting a body up, and it is very graphic. There is some comedy in there, you know, it does inject some comedy. But yes, you know, I can understand it is very graphic, and you know, it was quite disgusting actually. But you know, it was a good scene. It does have some comedy in there, and of course, just, you know, the way that the final act played out was just, you know, relieved all the tension that was built up, and certainly in the second half of the film, and it just culminated really quite perfectly in many ways. The ending is a bit underwhelming, the actual ending, but you know, it does you know, is a satisfying ending, you know, the final act of the film. And you know, I felt a lot for this character of Milo, you know, and the different things, you know, the balance of his lifestyle and stuff, and you know, Refn really explored, you know, the life of kind of a drug dealer really well again. It's not, you know, on the level of Pusher 2. It doesn't achieve mastery in quite a lot of ways, and it's not, you know, overall, you know, an absolutely stunning piece. But it is a great film, I feel, you know. It's basically, it's not mind-blowingly good, I don't feel, and it only just achieves that greatness, you know, purely because that final act is really strong. I'll give it a 90%. Definitely a great film. You know, really Refn, you know, achieved something really great with the, you know, the way it explores drug dealers and the lifestyle, and many other themes as well. You know, just a criminal lifestyle. And there's quite a lot of warmth to this film once again, a lot of heart, and it's a thoroughly human film throughout most of you know, the film. It does have some problems in the first act of the film. And, at times it does feel a bit flat, and the camera work, the editing style, it's not it's not fully confident. I don't feel as much as Pusher 2, and I would have preferred him to carry on in that vein, more. But really, every act gets better and better than its previous one, and it's a thoroughly moving film with some great characters once again. The writing, of course, Refn, of course, would write most of his films, and just really well written once again. You really get great exposition in this film that allows you to care for the characters, and it's a very unique film once again. Just not on the level of Pusher 2, and but really, on its own, it's a very fulfilling, final act to the trilogy, and definitely recommend this whole trilogy. Pusher. It's really only on DVD. I couldn't find it on Blu-ray, but yeah, I definitely recommend it. Pusher 1, I didn't, feel was great at all, but Pusher 2 and 3 are great. I feel, and I just recommend it. Zlatko Buric gives a stunning performance. As does quite a few of the other actors, but there is some flaws, and it's not perfect, and it only just really achieves that greatness, just because of how it comes together, at the end, it just gives it that edge. But really, yes, highly recommend it, and it's just, these are films that they're not appreciated enough, and that's not seen enough really. Could say that about a lot of Refn films, but yes. Definitely a great film, and Refn's 5th film, and once again just shows how much of a great director he is really, when he's at his best, when he's on form. He has had some misfires, and I'll get to one of them very, very soon, and his worst film is yet to come, for me, and I'll be reviewing that as well, of course. Be reviewing all the Refn films, and right at the end of the ranking, I'll be ranking his films. But yes, Pusher Trilogy and Pusher 3, recommend it highly. So yes, thanks for watching my review of Pusher 3.